This is a regular meeting of the Fairhaven Zoning Board of Adjustment. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. At the time of the board reorganization in January this year, the board adopted its regular meeting schedule for the year. Notice of the schedule was sent to and published in the Asbury Park Press on January 19th, 2022, and the Two River Times on January 20th, 2022. That notice was also posted on the bulletin board in Borough Hall and has remained continuously posted there as required by the statute. A copy of the notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. A copy of the notice has also been sent to such members of the public as have requested such information in accordance with the statute. Adequate notice having been given, the board secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. Get my sequence back to normal. Before proceeding with the formal meeting tonight, I'd like to say a few words to the applicants, their experts in the audience about the role and authority of the Fairhaven Zoning Board of Adjustment. The board is a separate and independent municipal legal entity, and its limited authority is specifically set forth in borough ordinances and the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law. It's quasi-judicial in nature, and the members of the board are unpaid volunteers appointed by the mayor and council. The zoning board does not enact the borough land use laws and regulations. The borough council does that. The zoning board does not enforce the land use laws of the borough of Fairhaven. This is the responsibility of the borough code enforcement officer. This board deals with appeals for relief from the requirements of the borough's land use laws or denials by the zoning officer. An applicant is never entitled to a variance, also known as an exception to the zoning regulations, but must meet specific criteria required by the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law and the Fairhaven ordinances by satisfying certain required standards of proof. The board has no authority to waive these requirements. The burden of proof is always on the applicant to show that he or she is entitled to the specific relief requested. The applicant must prove that a deviation from the regulations will advance the purposes of the ordinance and that deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment to the zone plan. Variances relate to the future use of the land and are not intended or authorized to remedy temporary or unique personal situations. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Here.
Ms. Quigley,
Here.
Mr. Ridgway, Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. La Barbera,
Here.
Dr. Lawfer,
Here.
Mr. Kinsella, Mr. Chiavetti,
Here.
and Mr. Leader.
Here. Do we have a flag?
Do I need to get my pillow again?
Aha.
There it is.
Would you please join me? Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands.
for which it stands, one nation,
Under
under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and
and
justice.
justice for all.
We need some practice on that one. All right. Greetings. Let's jump right into it. First matter on the agenda tonight is listed as old business. That is Garris and Vital.
Mr. Chairman, this was carried from the May meeting of the board without the necessity of renotice. We did not commence the matter, so I don't forget, I'm going to swear Ms. Gable, our professional planner. And if you'd unmute yourself, please. There you go. You do swear your testimony, give the board a bit of truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And Mr. Chairman, I think, and Ms. Gable can correct me if I'm wrong, were there a couple of completeness items?
There are.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, should I back out right now since I'm recusing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Marty. Let the record reflect that Mr. Ryan is recusing himself with regard to this matter. So why don't you just go dark, Marty? And I don't know if we can demote you to the peanut gallery, but go dark, please. Thank you.
And Sandy, I see Mark Akins in the gallery and he has his hand raised. If anybody else needs to be moved forward for the application, I would ask they also raise their hand, but if you could move Mark forward when you get a chance, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Can you hear me okay?
Can hear you fine, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, finally.
Terrific. And I think Mr. Thompson, our architect, and the clients, applicants, Mr. Gires and Ms. Vitale need to be moved forward as well.
And while we're doing that, Mr. Akins, why don't we let you put your appearance on the record? And once we have everybody together, we'll go back to Ms. Gable for the completeness.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rory, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Akins on behalf of the applicants. This is an application relating to 946 River Road in the Borough. It's shown as Block 62, Lot 2 on the borough's tax map. It's in the R10A zone. Are we ready with jurisdictional determination, Mr. Irene?
I indicated for the record, Mr. Akins, and I'm not sure if we had promoted you yet, that we reviewed your notice materials. Previously, the matter was carried without the necessity of renotice to tonight's meeting.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is an existing single-family residence that's located at the southwest corner of River Road and Woodland Drive. It's a significantly undersized lot at slightly more than 8,200 square feet, where 11,500 square feet is required in the R10A zone. You may see on the agenda that there was a note that there was an HFAR variance that had been requested. That has been withdrawn as the applicant had previously submitted plans to comply with the HFAR standard, which is 0.28 in the R10A zone. Other non-conforming conditions at the property relate to the minimum lot width on River Road. That's 74.1 feet, where 115 feet is required. Minimum lot frontage also on River Road at 80.39 feet existing, where also 115 feet is required. Minimum front yard setback on Woodland Drive of 19.9 feet, where 30 feet is required, and minimum side setback of 9.9 feet, where 10 feet is required. That's on the west side of the property. Again, at this time, the application meets the HFAR requirement, as well as the maximum building coverage and the HFA cap. The only variance that's sought and reviewed for the board's consideration this evening is that relating to maximum lot coverage, where 40% is the max in the R10A zone, 46.2 currently exists, and 47.3%, a 1.1% increase is proposed this evening. So with that, Mr. Chairman, the applicant would call the applicant's architect, Henry Thompson, ask that he please be sworn. Mr. Irene?
Yeah, Mr. Akins, I think we were just going to do the completeness items before we swear your first witness.
Terrific.
Sure. So for completeness, these are pretty much the typical completeness waivers that we've seen come before the board. The first one is a completed Monmouth County Planning Board application. We recommend that the applicant requested a waiver for the item, saying it's not applicable. So we recommend a waiver be granted for completeness purposes. They also requested a waiver from the Freeholdsville Conservation District application. We also recommend a waiver for that item. Also for the Monmouth County Health Department application, and then also for copies of all easements, covenants, and deed restrictors, as the applicant indicated that it's not applicable.
Anyone object?
No objections. I'll make a motion to accept the waivers as outlined.
Second,
Mr. McChesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
yes,
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
yes,
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
Mr. Akins, do you want to mark the exhibits that were submitted with the application, or do you want to just swear in your first witness?
We could mark the few that we have so far. I think we've got the initial application and plans that were prepared by Mr. Thompson. Perhaps those would be A1.
Yeah, there's a proposed quote site plan end quote plot plan, floor plans and elevations prepared by H.B. Thompson, Thompson, R.A. 5 sheets, December 24, 2021. And check me on this, Mr. Akins, but I believe they're revised through April 15, 2022.
That's correct. That's the most recent update I have, Mr. Irene.
All right,
Yes.
that'll be A1. We also had the survey, which I understand the plot plan was based on. Surveys prepared by Peter, middle initial P, Bennett, Bennett the third of WJH Engineering, one sheet, September 20, 2017. A-2.
A-2.
Okay, and if we can see Mr. Thompson, we'll swear him in for you.
Thank you.
Sir, could you give us your full name, spell your last, and your address for the record, please?
My name is Henry Thompson, Thompson. Address 2 Andorra Terrace, Freehold, New Jersey, 07728.
Okay, and if you'd raise your right hand. You do swear that any testimony you give the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Akins?
Thank you, Mr. Irene. Good evening, Mr. Thompson. Do you possess any licenses from the state of New Jersey?
I do. I am registered architect.
And how long have you been so licensed?
I think it was well over 20 years, 97, I think.
Okay. Closer to 25, it sounds like. Have you given testimony before planning and zoning boards in Monmouth County and in New Jersey during those 25 years?
I have.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry, I missed it if you said you did. Have you been qualified as an expert in architecture in Fairhaven?
In Fairhaven, I don't recall. If I was, it was a number of years back.
And are you familiar with the Fairhaven ordinances? Did you review them prior to preparing your plans? You familiar with how we calculate square footage in Fairhaven, et cetera?
I am, and yes, I did.
Anyone else have any questions?
No.
Any objections? Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thompson, take a moment, if you would, and orient the board to this site. Tell us what's existing at the site presently and what the applicants have proposed in connection with the matter this evening, please.
Of course. Would the board like me to share my screen so I can take them through the site plan?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Is the screen available for view?
It's not.
It's not.
Are you getting a message from your side saying it's not available to you?
No.
Are we still trying or are we going to do something else?
I am still trying, but I don't want to delay. So if it's okay and I verbally walk us through it, you all have the diagrams in front of you.
Let's proceed on that basis, please.
So just to clarify, the plans that I have in front of me show a last revision date of 4/15/22 zoning board update. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Very good.
Mr. Leader, real quick, Henry, can you, like, is there the green share screen button not in the middle?
It is.
Or do you have permission to share? Sandy, is he allowed to share since we brought him in as an attendee? I'd prefer to see the plan as he walks it through. I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge.
I don't see anything that's prohibiting him, if that's what you're asking. Like when I click on his,
So Mr. Thompson, when I click share screen, I get a window that pops up and I have an opportunity to press on a number of other windows from there. And then I can press in the lower right-hand corner to say share. Are you seeing those features on your side?
I do. I see share desktop, which I hit, and it is not sharing.
And did you press the
the share.
button in the lower right-hand side?
Yep, I hit desktop, hit share. he's not sharing.
And I found the button, Drew, that says that who can share all panelists, so that's clicked.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's something on my side here that's preventing it. Could be a security feature.
I mean, I could actually do it. Mr. Akins, do you have the capability of doing it from your side?
I do not.
Mr. Leader, I don't mind sharing my screen. I just know I'll have a hard time following verbally if we're going to get into the architectural drawings. So defer to you, sir, if you want me to share my screen and as he talks through it, walk through it.
I agree with you, Drew. It's better if we can do it that way. I don't know about you doing it for him, but if you want to try it that way, let's give it a shot.
You want me to share my screen so the board members can focus?
That would be fantastic.
Sure, I can share my screen then.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And share the architectural plans.
Perfect.
Everybody see that okay?
Thanks, Elena. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, so the property fronts on both River Road and Woodland Drive. The existing structure is oriented as the front facade towards River Road, and Woodland Drive is a side road. It's not oriented currently as a main entrance. The driveway comes in from Woodland, two-story structure. It's a white structure with some black trim. And if you look on the proposed site plan, you can see that what's being proposed is an addition, a master bedroom suite above the existing garage. In essence, there's no soil being touched other than on the western garage side. There will be some reinforcement of the existing footing. Other than that, there's no disturbance to the existing soil. And the only thing that's really increasing coverage on the ground is the cantilevers on both the east and west sides and an air conditioning compressor are the only additions to ground coverage. Any questions regarding the site? Elena, if you could move to the next page. Okay, this view is basically from the driveway looking from Woodland Drive. As you pull into the driveway, it shows in the great area the proposed addition above the garage. Any questions?
No.
Elena, if you could go to the next sheet. This first floor plans, you can see there's basically no additions whatsoever. There's no changes to the first floor plan. The existing garage remains. The existing laundry room remains. No changes whatsoever on the first floor. Are there any questions at this time regarding these pages?
I'm not seeing string dimensions on all the rooms. Do you have the existing laundry included in the square footage of the home?
Yes, it is. There was we did that space was enclosed, it turned into a conditioned space. It was a sunroom, basically. Previously, I think it was 2017 or 2019 that was converted into a laundry room. Went before the building department. That was all taken care of with permits. And the square footage is included in the calculations, which are on the first page. There's no additional questions. Lane, if you could move to the next page. This is the proposed second floor, where you can see the addition. The existing floor plan has 3 bedrooms and a single bathroom. The proposed addition creates an additional bedroom, bathroom suite, and closet. Minor modifications. The existing bathroom is, let me step back. There's 2 existing bathrooms. One of them is deleted to make the entrance into the master bedroom. So it remains 2 bathrooms upstairs.
And Mr. Thompson, on this plan, River Road is to the top.
That's correct.
And Woodland is to the right.
That's correct.
So this addition is behind the existing house as one sees it from River Road.
Correct.
Thank you.
Elena, go ahead.
Mr. Thompson, what was done? I understand that you trimmed the plans in order to get under the floor area ratio. What was done to the plans in order to cut out that square footage? How did you accomplish it?
Yeah, they're on the western side along where the bathroom and closet are. There was a 2-foot cantilever. That's been reduced. I believe it was 9 inches to 15 inches. And that removed the additional square footage that put it over the HFA. There are any other questions regarding these plans at this time?
Where, Mr. Thompson, with the addition and the plans, does the additional 1.1% of max lot coverage, can you provide fidelity why the max lot coverage is increasing based on the current design?
Yes. The cantilevers on either side, on the west and east side, are included in those calculations, as well as the overall square footage of the addition. So those two extensions, the cantilevers and the compressor for the HVAC, increase the square footage, and that's the 1%.
I got to admit, I didn't know that the cantilevered second floor would increase the lot coverage. That's something totally new to me.
Yeah, it's a vertical plane from the furthest point out, straight down.
Even though the footprint doesn't go down, right? Okay.
Correct. So the rainfall isn't going straight down, so it prevents rainfall to the ground on that.
Oh,
To
okay.
15 inches on the west side and something less than 3 feet, a little over 2 feet on the eastern side.
Right.
But there's no actual ground cover that's being added, other than the compressor, which I believe is about 6 square feet.
Right. All right. Thank you. I didn't know that.
Mr. Thompson, as I look at your south elevation, I'm looking at the 2 garage doors. And on the left-hand side, you're showing a cantilever of 1 foot 3 inches. And on the right-hand side, you're showing a cantilever of 3 feet. And as I look at them on my computer screen, they look exactly the same.
They are not.
And something's not scaled.
Yeah, the scale may be off on the 15-inch side.
But that's where you took the distance out. Had it originally been 3 and 3?
Correct. No, it was 2 and 3.
Well, it couldn't have been 2 because then it would have only been reduced by 9. Did you reduce it by 15 inches or 9 inches?
It was reduced by 9 inches.
Okay.
Previously, the western side was a 2-foot extension. The eastern side, there's a bay window adjacent to the house. And the reason that it extends that additional 3 feet as opposed to simply 2 was simply to cover that existing roof system without having a rather funky detail exposed on Woodland Drive. So that's the only reason that side is really sticking out, that additional foot. It's really kind of to cover that detail, which would have been a somewhat costly detail to try and change around.
So just help me understand. So separate from the cost involved, if that 1 foot 3 on the left and the 3 foot on the right, with the picture that's shown, the existing coverage area would not change.
Can you repeat that? I didn't follow.
So the cantilever, is that the correct term?
Correct.
So there's 2 here, correct? One on the left at 1 foot 3 and one on the right at 3 foot 0?
Correct.
Okay. So if those did not exist and the addition lined up squarely with the current footprint,
Yes.
would the plans specific to the percent max lot coverage, not change.
It would change, it would go down.
So right now, the existing percent max lot coverage is 46.2%. The proposed is 47.3, an increase of 1.1%. And just help me understand, and the reason for the increase is because of these two cantilevers. Is that what was said?
Primarily, yes.
So if these two,
About 95% of that calculation increase is due to those two cantilevers. Only 6 square feet for the air compressor would also contribute.
and there would be no way to account for that 6 square feet within a footprint that would be the same size as the first floor garage?
No, that would need to be outdoors and it would need to sit somewhere unless it was raised on a platform above grade.
Okay, but just to clarify, so 95%, if those two cantilevers didn't exist, you would be within 0.05% of the percent max lot coverage that's currently existing.
Yes, I believe we would be within the coverage.
Okay, thanks.
Well, let me
Where,
clarify.
where is
We
that?
would not be increasing the coverage by just over 1%.
Where is
Already
that?
it's existing, it's already over the lot coverage at 47.
Understood. But I'm just trying to understand the reason for the variance, right? And understand what would happen to the footprint if it were to comply. I know it's a pre-conforming condition, but if you went from 46.2 to 46.2 and still stayed within your maximum habitable floor area square footage, we wouldn't be here. So I'm just trying to understand what's contributing to that 1.1%. That's all.
Sure. So most specifically on the eastern side, 3-foot cantilever, the condition against the house presents a situation where aesthetically it's just not pleasing, we believe, to the neighborhood to bring it back flush with the existing garage wall on the eastern side.
Could you explain that a little bit? So you're saying you're motivated really by the exterior appearance of the proposal as opposed to the room you need inside?
Both are included in that. I'm not trying to say that's the only reason,
Mhm.
but
How does the cantilever make it more attractive from the exterior?
sure. So there, right up, if you're looking at the building elevation number 4 east, Woodland Drive, where the addition butts up against the existing residence. On the first floor, you'll see there's a vertical line about 2 feet back from that, and above that is a roof system that's being eliminated by having the cantilever cover it. It makes a much more cleaner detail aesthetically. In our opinion, it's much more pleasing to that side of the house.
Could you tell us where that AC compressor is going to be? Because I don't see that. I don't see the new one on here. See the existing one on the west side, on the east side of the house.
It's proposed on the western side, behind
is that-
behind the garage.
Does that conform to the setback on that side?
It does, yes.
Go ahead, Al, I'm sorry.
Okay, so is it going to be under the cantilever then? Because it's,
Correct.
okay. The cantilever on that side is only
1.3 feet.
1.3 feet.
It's not entirely under it. They have approximately 4 feet on that side, and that's where it's anticipated to be placed.
Okay, but it's going to be more than the deficient 9.9 foot single side yard setback on that side?
It will not protrude into.
Okay, thank you.
It's a relatively small unit.
Okay.
So, this is a really strange application for a number of reasons, but the applicant has gone back and revised the plans to avoid the floor area ratio problem, and you've now got a lot coverage problem. It's not a very common problem, to be honest. And I'm looking at the site plan, and you've got a big patio paver and a huge driveway. Why is the applicant not just proposing to remove some of this impervious coverage and make this plan comply?
Great question. So although it appears in the drawing, paved driveway as being really large, it's really not. When you're driving your vehicle in there for two vehicles to pull in, there's not really a lot of extra space. So it's relatively adequate for their needs, and we really didn't feel reducing it was helpful, nor necessarily safe. Making the driveway space a little bit tight. Really, we sort of did not propose going down that direction.
And the patio paver, why can't that be removed and just make that lawn?
And that is certainly a possibility.
Well,
I think it is really sort of their backyard, and the whole paved areas where they can entertain. There really is no other location on the yard other than the front yard where they can, be outdoors with the family and the children and play. The patio really kind of is their backyard. So reducing
Chairman, I
it.
think Ms. Gable had suggested that we look into removing the slate walk, which also would contribute to lot coverage on the west side of the residence. It doesn't seem to really do a lot in terms of connecting. So that could be an area as well that could be removed and trimmed up a little bit.
I think we may want to advance this discussion somewhat, but assuming for a second that you can't accommodate this and you're now asking for the variance, I'd like to get into the aesthetics. This house is very attractive from River Road. And I look at this addition and I find some awkwardness to it. It's awkward to me, to my eye, not as an architect, because it sits 2.5 feet above the existing house. And it doesn't look like the existing house. The windows don't match, at least as far as I can tell based on your plans. I don't see evidence that the trim detail matches. You've got this wonderful cantilever with the Juliet porch balcony overlooking River Road. Was there not an opportunity to sort of mirror some of those things facing your second front along Woodland? It just strikes me as interesting how you've done this.
Sure. So certainly the opportunity exists to put some sort of, propose some sort of balcony over there. But I think from the client's perspective, use of the space on the interior was its primary goal and driving factor. I should mention that the owner's intent is that the exterior the entire house is going to be resided with a cedar-shaped clapboard fiber cement board in white to match the existing and new windows placed. So all the windows, trim, and siding of the house, as well as roof, will be replaced and all will be new. In context with what's currently on.
Can you please clarify what the siding material is going to be?
The intent is that it be a fiber cement board with the cedar shape, cedar impression texture. White.
Okay, this is important. So fiber cement board, so hardy board in a cedar shake style, or as a
no, it's not a cedar shake style. Sorry, it simply has the cedar, the wood texture to the clapboard. It's a clapboard.
It's clapboard siding out of cement board, and the whole house will be redone in that.
Correct.
And will all of the trim be redone in the house to match?
For the exterior, correct.
Yes, the exterior trim, but all of it will be redone similarly so that it all is integrated.
Correct.
Okay. How about this roof height? I mean, your roof pitches don't match, and it looks like they could. Is there a reason that
I appreciate you bringing that question up. So the existing house has a 7-foot ceiling height on the second floor. And so from the front and rear of the house, those roofs slope up. And to match the existing slope of the existing roof without doing the same in this building, which really sort of cramped the use of that interior space. The existing ceiling starts at 8 feet wide. So without creating a relatively small ceiling height in the new addition, there was no way to get those ceilings, that roof to align the same height without changing the pitch of the roof, so that they didn't match the existing home.
So the existing home has a 7-foot ceiling on the second floor?
Correct. Starts at 7 feet for the roof rafters, and it inclines up to where it goes flat at 8 feet.
Okay, that's what I would have expected. And so in this case, you couldn't do the same thing, moderate the roof pitch so that it was matching, so that it looked like it was part of the same original construction? You know,
It's something that could be done. It's just not something that I nor the owners really anticipated doing, because it really takes away from the interior use of the space. The closet space gets reduced, is less, it's less usable. The same with the bathroom walls, and then obviously in the master bedroom. And the doorway, when you're entering the master bedroom suite, is right along that side, so you're kind of walking into a sloped ceiling along your left side as you're walking into the suite, and just was not a comfortable feeling.
yeah, look, you're talking about the use of a very, very small corner of the ceiling. Certainly the doors coming in, to the master suite, but in the bathroom, that area would be where the sinks are, and in the back of the closet. I'm not challenging the reason. I guess I'm challenging whether or not it's as significant as you're suggesting. And the cantilevers themselves were created as an architectural feature, or because you needed to connect a roof line?
All of those items came into play.
Can you explain the roof line issue? Because I can't follow that.
Okay, which elements of the roof line are you referring to?
Well, you know what? It's really the woodland elevation that matters, because this is really a second front. And, this is a very, well-traveled street. It gets a lot of traffic. The house is quaint, and this is going to be a pretty substantial addition. I realize the overall square footage is not significant, but the size of this structure will be. So that's really what I'm focusing on. The cantilever to the patio pavers.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, are you referring to the height of the roof along that side above the addition?
No, I understand your explanation of why you've made it 2.5 feet taller is so that you can have a clean 8-foot ceiling on the second floor of the addition. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And with regard to the cantilever, I understood you to explain that was being done because you needed to make a connection to the existing roof in a way that was clean. And I'm looking at the site plan, and I'm not following how that works. So that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay. If you refer back, if Elena could bring up the site plan again for a moment. So if you look at that connection, you can see coming across the existing home is a 12.4 foot dimension. And then you can see there's a 2-foot and 3-foot dimensions, which is where there's a bay window.
That I think you're talking about I have the plan up on my other screen with the orange roof. Is that what you're looking at?
No, I'm looking at A01.
You're looking at what Elena has up, okay?
Right.
And
So
that 12.4 dimension is just on the north side of the patio paver, right?
correct, yes.
Okay.
So that's where the bump out of the existing house is, which gets covered by the roof structure gets removed and gets covered and absorbed into that area. So it's just going to be a little bit more aesthetic.
Okay, again, so you're saying that cantilevering this 3 feet towards woodland gives you an opportunity to cut into this roof in a clean way, and without that 3-foot cantilever, you could not.
Correct.
Elena, with regard to the lot coverage, there's a bunch of stuff on here that, like, there's this railroad tie area shown on the site plan. Is that impervious coverage? What is that?
I don't, I'm not sure if that area was included in the lot area in the lot coverage calculations, or if it's even still there. I know that it's showing there's a wooden fence around that portion of the front yard that when I did my site visit, I don't believe there's still a fence there. One of my comments in my report was to provide some testimony about what parts of on the survey are there and what isn't, and any changes that have happened on the property since this survey might have been done.
Do we know what the date of the site survey is?
It's not on here.
17, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was observed that the survey's dated from 2017, and obviously these plans are well after that. That accounts for perhaps some of the issues. I wanted to just jump in as well to help quantify the issue. So just so everybody understands the math that we're talking about. So the reason we're here is we're requesting a lot coverage variance of 1.1% for a lot that's 8,235 square feet. That's 91 square feet. This driveway follows the southerly property line for a distance of 73 feet. If we take off 1.5 feet from the driveway, that's more than 105 square feet. That variance goes away. I think that's the way to resolve the issue.
Well, does that slate walk on the west side serve any purpose at all?
Apparently the slate walk is it's depicted, but it's subsequently been removed.
So that's not counted in the current
So that can't be
calculation?
counted towards that, no.
Okay.
Mr. Akins, if the applicant would propose to remove 1.5 feet of driveway because they can, you eliminate the variance and we're done.
Right. I'm proffering that we will find a way to remove 91 square feet from this driveway. It may not be 18 inches all the way down, but I'm absolutely sure we can find a way to remove 91 square feet, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Akins, I mean, I know this is an old survey, but you have a slate walk that apparently goes nowhere. You've got other improvements that are shown here that may or may not be calculated. I don't know who did the calculation or who signed the plans that say that this is the lot coverage. You know, you've got a very long concrete sidewalk to River Road, and there's a lot of things that could be manipulated to make this thing conform.
So on page 1 of Mr. Thompson's plans, you'll see there's area calculations. It's very detailed. I have no issue with the applicant offering to provide an updated survey that's consistent with the existing lot conditions. I think that's reasonable. And we could also show it proposing the removal of 91 square feet wherever that shakes out. I think that's very much the way to resolve this. Again, I certainly want to take all the comments into account, but it would seem to me to be a very de minimis reduction, easily and readily achievable by the applicant.
Well, let's assume I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Quigley.
What would you require then for your application if you removed the 91 square feet?
Yeah, that's my point, Mr. Akins. If the applicant's saying we're going to make it conform, then I assume we're just withdrawing the application. You're going to make it conform and you're going to submit.
The only thing that you have an undersized lot.
All pre-existing nonconformities, no problem.
Otherwise, all pre-existing nonconformities that would be unaffected by this application.
So that's one of the things I was going to ask. I was looking for the zoning denial. For some reason, I couldn't find it. Is there any call out for altering a structure that's either non-conforming or altering a structure that's on a non-conforming lot? Does that require relief, even if you're not exacerbating any of the deviations?
No.
So if it doesn't, then it would seem to me if they say we're going to conform to lot coverage, assuming for the moment that's the only proposed deviation, then everything else is pre-existing non-conforming. And do we need,
Well,
to
they're going to avoid exacerbating the non-conformance of lot coverage, right, Mike? I mean, they're not going to conform to the ordinance, right?
Oh, you're just going to take it back to where it was, Mr. Akins?
We would bring it back to the existing 46.2%.
Right. He's
And when
gonna
you look at the
terminate
rest of the
the-
calculations, Mr. Hankins, right, not to speak for you, but then everything else stays within the maximum levels, the max habitable floor area, the max habitable floor area ratio, everything conforms with what is changing. Correct?
Everything conforms now except for lot coverage.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't know about that. I don't know that you're going to get clear sailing through the building department by removing some of the driveway if you're still not conforming. I don't think you've earned the right to be over by 6% just because you've got a big driveway and then replace it with house.
There may also be difficulties demonstrating that it's lawful pre-existing. So presumably what's going on is the applicant saying, listen, we're asking for relief for the existing nonconformities that are shown on the plan. But as far as the lot coverage, we're going to maintain that at what is existing 46.2. And we're asking the board to sanction those as they exist, I assume. Is that where we are?
Particularly in
any
the context of
is
it
there
being
any-
an undersized lot, yes.
Was any relief granted prior to this to allow for the initial 6% overage?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of.
Mr. Akins, what is the required setback on the westerly side of this lot?
It is 10 feet.
And are you comfortable?
Oh,
that you-
excuse me, I beg your pardon. It's, 1 second.
Side yard setback on the western side is 10 feet.
That's the minimum?
Correct.
I want to make sure that the placement of a new compressor on that side isn't going to cause you problems or that you have an alternative.
Yeah, it's 10
In the,
feet.
in the event that it would protrude into the 10-foot setback, I don't think there'd be any issue with, on the owner's side, to place it on the eastern corner, where on the plan it says wood fence.
No, you
3-foot
can't put it on the
wood
eastern
fence.
side because that's a front yard and you can't put the AC in the front yard.
As odd as that sounds, since you seem to already have one there.
Yes, there is one existing today.
Well, what would be nice to know, Mr. Akins, is what you need. You know, if we knew, then the board could look at whether or not it's the best location for it. I don't think you sit a compressor immediately adjacent to a house, and most of them are multiple feet in size, and it's certainly close.
So the dimension shown on the plans on the west side is 12 feet 8 inches.
That's
No,
the-
that's on the eastern side. The western side has 4 feet. And so the compressor that's anticipated is less than 3 feet wide. So it presumably can fit within the setback on the western side adjacent to the garage.
So is it your testimony, Mr. Thompson, that you can fit a compressor within the 10-foot setback on the west side yard setback and also not have that buzzing up against the structure directly?
Correct. That's what I anticipate. The actual compressor has not been selected, but it is anticipated to be a relatively small unit because, again, it's not doing the entire house. It's only doing the bedroom.
How far does the compressor need to be away from the structure by code?
I'm unaware if there is a code requirement. There's typically a manufacturer's suggestion of clear area around them. But I'm not aware that there's a code requirement for the compressor to be away from that.
We would stipulate that we'd abide by any building code requirement for clearance from the unit to the structure. And we'd stipulate that we'd hold the 10-foot side yard setback on the westerly side for the new unit.
No, that's fair, Mr. Akins. What my concern is just kind of looking out, right, for, you know, the homeowners here is we've had previous conversations on different applications where you have a minimum amount of space that's required between the house and where the compressor is going to be. And then you get into the size of the compressor and actually what size you need to be effective with the square footage. So all I'm just saying is, right, just that should be thought through before saying, hey, we can make it work. Well, what if you don't have the right size compressor and then you're not going to cool it effectively? So I just offer that, sir.
And that information's well taken care of. So I believe the unit that's sort of anticipated for here is a BFR unit, which have relatively small compressors, unlike a more traditional unit, which they typically are a little bit larger.
All right, look,
But again,
so
it's a relatively small area that's being conditioned, so the compressor is anticipated to be able to fit in that area and meet the manufacturer's requirements of distance back from the house.
all right, so we flagged the issue. Mr. Akins says it's going to comply, and they're satisfied with a condition that it comply at the end of construction. I don't think we have to take it any further.
Thank you.
Agreed.
I'm still a little confused about decreasing the proposed lot coverage back to the currently existing lot coverage, which does not comply with the ordinance. If the applicant does that, do they still need to be before the zoning board at all?
They do. So Pat, here's the thing. If the addition, if they could remove enough lot coverage to comply with the ordinance, then they would be in compliance as a matter of right. They could withdraw. But what they're proposing is to remove just enough to not exceed the existing deviation. And you're not allowed, you don't get to just trade that way. And so they're still before us. So I believe Mr. Akins has proposed to eliminate some of the driveway so as to not increase the deviation, but he is not proposing to remove enough to get it back to conformance.
That's correct. I am reasonably certain we can find 91 square feet, but to find another 6.2% of 82,000 square feet, that sounds to me like, 8,200 square feet. That sounds to me like it's going to be, somewhere on the order of another 450 square feet roughly.
Remember, the 46.2 exists because the lot is undersized. So it's not like somebody nefariously put something on there where that didn't get variance or relief for it. That's how I'm thinking anyway. So it may, I mean, we're assuming that the building department will say, oh, no, you can't do that. You have to come before the zoning board. But I don't know that we don't know that that's true. We're speculating, right, Todd? Or do we know this for a fact?
Well, dollars to donuts, that driveway got repaved and expanded, and that patio went in all without permits prior to this owner's ownership, and that's how it got to where it is.
Very possible.
We'll start
Yep.
there. But if what you're suggesting is that if they simply submitted removing the 91 square feet and that it would go through because they weren't actually exacerbating the pre-existing nonconformity, I don't think so. It's not worth the risk for the applicant anyway. So even if that's possible, we've come this far.
Yeah. So then we should be rethinking about giving variance relief for 8.2% or whatever the new number is, not the delta between 46 and it's not just the additional 91 square feet.
So we were proposing, Mr. Nachesney, to hold at 46.2 the existing condition, which means that with this proposed cantilever addition, we've got to take 91 square feet out of the driveway or the pavers or some other impervious condition at the site.
Yeah.
91 square feet.
I don't recall, does pervious pavers, are they still calculated the same in Fairhaven? I simply don't recall.
Yes, they are.
Yes. Yes.
They are calculated as impervious.
Correct.
Yeah, we just had this come up a couple of months ago, last month, month before, I don't remember.
So, Mr. Chairman, board members, I'd ask that you give the applicant the chance to work with Mr. Thompson and with your planner, Ms. Gable, to find a suitable place to remove some combination of 91 square feet to hold at lot coverage existing of 46.2 square feet, 46.2%, excuse me.
And will there be an updated site survey provided as well that we
Yes,
talked about?
I posited that. Yes, I think
Cool.
that's appropriate. I think that's very appropriate here.
That'd be part of resolution compliance. Okay, so then the proposal then is to not increase the lot coverage from what exists today and to permit the addition. So does everybody know where we are?
Yes.
Yes.
Look, guys, I still have a problem with the architectural. I don't understand it. The explanations, I'm listening, but I don't, to me, this is a really big trade-off, and it seems like such a minor issue, but I have to say that I have a problem with some of the architectural. Having it all freshly sided with fresh window trim, I think is great, but you know, when additions come in, you know, good ones look like they were part of the original structure. I don't think there's any chance this looks that way. And it's very prominent to woodland. I put that out there for the board, just as we move to the end here.
I agree with you, Mr. Lito. I think it's prominent from River Road as well. You can see the obvious difference in heights. Definitely makes it look like something that was stuck on the back of it. So there are concerns there.
I'm in agreement as well.
I was
Is it within the purview of this board to make a decision based on the architecture of the house?
So Dr. Laufer, I mean, we can let Michael jump in, but the issue related to the variance has to be tied to the architectural issues that you're looking at. So they have to be tethered. And, you know, there's not going to necessarily be a direct relationship, but they certainly need to be tied together. If the applicant were removing the impervious in order to do this as a matter of right, they could do whatever they wanted, but they're not proposing to do that. And so what you have is an addition, which is going to add substantial bulk in a very visible way, and it requires a variance. I'm pretty comfortable with how I see it. Michael, what do you think?
Well, as you say, if they made it conform, they wouldn't be here and they could do what they want. Once they're here, they do require variance relief. The board's got to look at not only the positive criteria, but also has to look at the negative criteria. Has to decide whether there are ways to mitigate any adverse impact. And you're dealing with the size of the lot, which apparently can't be altered. But you're also dealing with the location of the structure on the lot. And you're dealing with the excess coverage, even though the applicant is proposing to hold the line. So there are variances in play. It's before the board on that.
Mr. Thompson, is the change in the roof height covering the attic?
When you say covering the attic of the,
In other words,
Existing
in the diagram on the bottom right, that change in the roof line. Yeah, that change in the roof line of, what is that, 2.8 inches or 2.8 feet? Why is that? I mean, what is it covering?
Sure. So the existing home is approximately 22 feet wide. And so with that particular roof pitch, that's how high the roof comes up at the center of the roof. This building is wider, and that's why the roof is higher.
But
So
what is that roof line covering? Isn't it covering an attic?
yes, of course, it's covering attic, yes.
So what difference does it make whether you're elevated there or you go just straight across in line with the front of the house? As long as it's covering attic, it just decreases the size of the attic or the height of the attic.
Correct. It would change the roof pitch from the addition and the existing home. Currently, we're maintaining the same roof pitch so that it aesthetically looks pleasing. If we reduce the height of that roof, say make it match, reduce it to 2 feet and change, the roof, the angle of the roof over this new addition would be different, and you know that itself has an aesthetic impact.
So Dr. Laufer, the existing home is 22 feet wide. the addition over the garage is 24 foot 8 inches plus the cantilevers. So
Mhm.
even at the same roof pitch, call it 6 on 12, 4 on 12, whatever it is, it comes up higher. Mr. Thompson, do I understand you to be saying that this is the same roof pitch as the main house?
That's correct.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
It's simply that the garage is wider than the existing home.
Mr. Leader, on that note, and Mr. Thompson, further to that, keeping, the proposed roof line as is, what manipulation could be done to the corresponding roof line to make it more uniform? So where the chimney is, right? And whatever that pitch there is with the triangle. What
That's-
manipulation?
That would be a substantial imposition because they're not touching that roof, nor are they touching that chimney. They'd have to raise the entire thing. That would change a lot.
Copy.
Correct. The chimney would have to be extended, as well as the entire roof over the existing home would have to be rebuilt. So it's a
Understood.
substantial change.
Understood.
Let me ask this question, Mr. Thompson, because clearly there's not a perfect solution. If you were to flatten out this roof further than it is now, so that it no longer matched the existing house, but was actually shallower, what would be the end result of that? Could you get it to be at the same height as the existing? It would just look different from the garage door side?
It would look different from the garage side, and currently the pitch where the existing roof and the new roof come together is at a pretty much a 45-degree angle, which would be normal. That angle would change. So it would have an aesthetic impact similar to the change over top of the garage, looking at that gable area.
Your gutter line for the new addition, is it going to line up with the gutter line of the existing structure?
Yes, that's the intent.
What about the fenestration issues? I know that that was in the report. It appears on the southerly elevation and on the westerly elevation, there are very few windows.
Okay, on the western side, you have the one window that was added to conform with the code is in the bathroom above the toilet. The remainder of that wall heading to the left is where the sinks and mirror would be. And then to the right of that window is closet space. There's very little closet space in this home, very little storage. And they're part of gaining this additional closet space is to maximize storage within that space.
But you
So
comply,
presenting a window in there would take away storage space.
the westerly elevation complies, though, you're saying?
It does comply, yes.
And what about the southern elevation?
The southern elevation is that's directly above the garage doors,
Right.
and there's two windows within the master bedroom there.
Does it comply?
I believe it does. I'd have to run the calculation again to confirm. I don't have that information available at the moment.
So, Mr. Chairman, board members, there are a number of questions that you all have on the architecturals. There are some questions with regard to where we can find 91 square feet, or perhaps even more than that. So I would ask, rather than trying to, kind of take this through kind of piece by piece, that you give us a month to review, consider these comments, then come back to you. I don't know that we can get a survey done in a month, but certainly we can provide a little bit more confirmation about what's there and what's not there. So I'd ask that it please be carried to the July meeting with no further notice, if possible.
I wouldn't object to that. I would even make that motion, but I would like to go to the public and make sure that we don't have anybody that's come tonight
Please.
that wants to be heard. Does any board members have any objection to that idea?
No, the only thing I, not at all on the guts of it, the only thing I would caution is that I think in July, we're planning on being in person, and that may require a renotice.
No,
We can
Oh,
make
does it?
that notice. We can make that notice here, depending on
Okay.
when you carry it, where we're going to be.
Thank you, Mr. Irene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Leader, just one final thing for Mr. Akins, and really appreciate the flexibility, sir. At the next meeting, what I would like to hear some more on would be page 5 of the planning review, sir. Section 3, where we would go through testimony regarding the visual impact of the development, et cetera, on the surrounding neighboring dwellings as mean to address the negative criteria. That would just be one question I would have at the next meeting, just to let you know.
Sure. Now that impact, of course, that those criteria that you're citing, those relate to the variance. So if we deal away with the variance on the coverage connected to the house, I'm not sure we have an impact to neighboring properties with the addition.
it's still going to be a variant. It's still going to be a variance, Mr. Akins. We're not going to argue that it doesn't trigger a new variance. I think we're accepting that it does. Otherwise, you could just withdraw. Just to go back through the argument, you can't remove the patio and build house and still be over and expect the building department to sign off on it. So as a result, if you need the variance, then you're still going to need to prove your C criteria.
I understand.
And by the way, Mr. Akins, if you wanted to contact the building department, if you're gonna pull it tonight anyway and carry, and you talk to them and they tell you they'll green light it, then maybe you could go that route. I mean, certainly don't need to deal with us if they're willing to let it go through. It's not our call. I'm just guessing at the way they would look at it.
I'll add that to the list of things to review, in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you.
I'm just curious whether there are building permits being issued for plans that have pre-existing nonconformities without triggering any need for variances because of exacerbating those nonconformities. I don't know what the policy is with the building department, but I don't recall seeing any applications for variances just to confirm the pre-existing nonconformity. Is that right?
It's not apples and apples.
Okay.
If there's an exacerbation of a pre-existing nonconformity, they'll flag it. If they were doing an addition and there were nonconformities to the existing structure, but everything about the new structure conformed, then they would go through because of the grandfather ordinance. And under these circumstances, it is a little odd.
Yeah.
But again, you don't get a measure. Put it this way. If you assume for a second that what I speculated is true, that they expanded the driveway when they did their last paving and they added the patio without a permit, if you allowed an applicant to then say, hey, I'm just going to remove the patio now and I'm going to build this additional structure, you'd kind of backdoor in a lot of things. I don't think that's the intent.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. How did you get to the 46% in the first place? So.
It's also different types of coverage. It's actual building versus patio. I think they have to be viewed differently. Anyway, whatever.
It's an interesting topic to figure, to try to figure out what the rules are that apply to it. Seems to me. I'm sure there's a lot of homes in the town where things have been done, that brings the house out of conformity with the zoning ordinance as it existed at the time. But we don't see variance applications for all of them when they want to do something to
Absolutely.
it, But anyway, it's interesting.
All right. Do we need a motion, Todd, or we need anything further?
I was going to go to the public unless there's anything further.
Oh, yeah, public. I'm sorry, I interrupted you before. Go
I
ahead.
just had a couple comments from my report, if that's all right, that we didn't get to touch on at all during our conversation.
Go
Are
ahead.
there any proposed landscaping, and are the existing trees proposed to remain?
So there's landscaping proposed on the River Road facade, and the applicant, to the extent that it's sought to re-landscape the trees on the Woodland Drive side, it would work with your office, Ms. Gable, to re-landscape. Nothing specific is proposed, but it would want to reserve those rights.
Sure, and you would also try to protect all the trees that are existing?
That's correct. I believe the more prominent trees on the Woodland Drive site are well out of the building envelope. Yeah.
Okay.
But any that might be affected, we'd certainly stipulate to protecting them. There's no point in harming the trees because of the construction. That's certainly not a result that anybody intends.
Okay, great. I think that was the only outstanding comment that I have for my report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are any members of the public here that would like to make any statement with regard to the application or ask any questions of the applicant or the applicant's expert, I'd ask you to use the raise your hand feature. The applicant has requested that we carry till the next meeting. We just don't want to lose an opportunity to hear from somebody who might have come to make a comment. Okay, let the record reflect, I see no hands. Okay, Mr. Akins, you're proposing to be carried to the July meeting
Yes, please.
with an extension of time to act and on the condition that there be no need to renotice. And we're going to notice here tonight that that meeting would be live in person at Borough Hall.
And we'll provide the stipulation on the time for decision extension to Ms. Papa at her request.
I'm making that motion.
Second.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
Yes,
Mr. No, not Mr. Ryan, Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I may have missed it, but do we actually announce the date, July 7? So, and Sandy, you can confirm that that is the date for me, please, and then we'll just make sure interested parties, to the extent that they're listening, know. Yes?
Yes, July 7th.
All right, so the matter is being carried to July 7, 2022 without the necessity to renotice. And that meeting is going to be conducted live and in person at Borough Hall, Fairhaven. Is that satisfactory, Mr. Akins?
Very satisfactory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Akins.
Thank you all. We'll see you in July. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, the next matter tonight is the Roberts matter. If you're here for the Roberts matter, if you could please use the raise your hand feature, and Sandy will pull you forward.
And Mr. Chairman, just so there's no confusion, I believe Mr. Roberts is the individual who filled out the application. As I understand it, he's the contractor. But I believe the property owner and the actual applicant is Mr. Powell, and I believe he was referenced in the notice as the applicant. So if there's any interested parties here on the Powell matter or the Roberts matter, they're apparently the same. Okay?
Hello? Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Your volume's very low.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm the resident at 41 Heights Terrace. I have my husband here, Adam Powell, as well as our contractor, Dennis Roberts. We are in fact the applicants.
I'm going to take back what I said. We can't hear you. Can anyone else hear her well enough?
no.
No.
Is it better?
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So hi again, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time and attention this evening. My name is Karen Powell. I'm the resident at 41 Heights Terrace. I have my husband here, Adam Powell, as well as our contractor, Dennis Roberts from Rocon. And we are the applicants, and Dennis Roberts was the one who filled out the application.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the notice materials. They appear to be in order. We can just see if there's any interested parties in the audience who have any issues or problems with regard to the notice. They can raise their hands, but everything appeared to be in order. Any raised hands?
Yes.
Okay. If you want to bring that person forward, we can just find out if there's an issue with regard to the notice.
Did it unmute?
Yes, ma'am. Can we see
Sorry
you?
about, yeah.
Do you have video?
Let's see, how do I, I'll start the video. I'm sorry, I apologize about that.
Okay, ma'am, could we just have your name and address? Could we just have your name and address?
My name is Grace Greenberg. I live at 34 Heights Terrace. I'm diagonally across from the applicant. Sorry, I didn't recognize the name.
Okay, so Ms. Greenberg, right now, we just want to make sure that there are no issues with regard to the notice. We haven't
No,
got
there's
the
no-
merits. No.
I got the notice, yes.
All right, so we're then going to go back to where we were a few minutes ago, and you'll
Okay,
have an
I
opportunity later
apologize.
on. No, it's quite all right, quite all right. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I think there were a couple completeness items if we want to address those.
Sounds good.
And by the way, I'll indicate for the record that the board has jurisdiction here and consider the matter. I've reviewed the notice and it's adequate.
Is Mr. Ryan back on the board?
Is he back? Yes, he is. Thank you. Let the record reflect that Mr. Ryan has rejoined the board. Thank you, Mr. Chiavetti. And again, let me swear in Ms. Gable, our professional planner. You do swear your testimony to give the board to be the truth, all truth, and nothing but truth?
I do.
Thank you. Completeness?
Sure thing. Again, these are some of our pretty standard completeness waiver. Monmouth County Planning Board application, Freehold Soil Conservation District, Monmouth County Health Department, and also the copies of all easements, covenants, and deed restrictions. There's one waiver also from the application guidelines. It's regarding the location and type of attic access. I recommend the waiver be granted for completeness. However, the applicant shall provide testimony pertaining to attic access during the hearing. And with that, that would be all of the completeness waivers for this application.
Anyone have a problem with any of those waivers?
Not at all.
No.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the waivers, or to grant the waivers, I should say.
I'll second.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we had a boundary and topographic survey prepared by Justin, middle initial J, Hedges, Hedges, PLS, of Insight Surveying LLC, one sheet, December 21, 2021. Sandy will mark that A-1. And we had additions and alterations plans prepared by A period Vincent, VINCNT, Minkler, MINKLER, R period, A period, 4 sheets, April 22, 2022. I don't believe there's a revision date. That'll be A-2. And do we want to swear in our first witness, Mr. Chairman?
Sounds good.
So I'll tell you what, Mr. Powell, Ms. Powell, why don't you both raise your right hand? We'll swear you in, then we'll swear in Mr. Roberts, okay? All right, you do swear your testimony to give the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay, so Ms. Powell first, could you just give us your full name, spell your last, your address, please?
Sure. My name is Karen Powell, Powell, 41 Heights Terrace in Fairhaven, New Jersey, 07704.
Thank you. Mr. Powell?
Adam Powell, 41 Heights Terrace, ADAM, POWELL, Heights Terrace, 41 Heights Terrace, Fairhaven, New Jersey.
And Mr. Roberts, if you give us your full name, spell your last and your address for the record, we'll swear you in also.
Sure, Dennis Roberts. Our office address is 705 Route 71 in Brielle, 08730.
And I'm going to raise your right hand. We're swearing you do swear in testimony, give the board of your truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Okay. Who's up first?
Me, I'll go up. Here, we moved into our home about 5.5 years ago. We fell in love with the traditional Cape style home that it is. And our plan is to give it a very conservative facelift. We're interested in improving the functionality of the home. We have 4 children, so we wanted to just, make it as livable as possible. And we come here seeking relief for the covered front entryway. We're interested in doing something very conservative just to increase the aesthetics of the home as well as add functionality to the current space.
So is the only variance triggered by the application the front porch?
Yes. Originally we had an issue with the floor area ratio, which we went back and renovated by keeping the driveway where it is, deleting the mudroom, and keeping the driveway as is.
So there's a larger renovation going on,
Correct.
but the only issue that's triggering the variance is the front porch.
Correct.
And do you have permits pulled for all the other work?
We're in the process of doing our construction drawings and going to submit that this week.
Okay, and is the front porch integrated into the rest of the design, or is it something that you can proceed with even if you don't?
Separate. Correct. Yes.
Do we have a plan that we can show that we can take a look at this?
Can I comment on that now, Mr. Irene?
You have to ask Mr. Chairman, Mr. Leader.
Mr. Leader?
Sure, Mr. Roberts.
So as Ms. Powell testified that, we had backed off on the plan regarding the FAR and some other things she mentioned. So we have not been able to complete the construction drawings as we are still at this phase making those changes. We are ready to submit for permit, and we assume we're submitting, we're anticipating submitting the front porch with the drawing. So we can proceed with our other construction as it's not requiring a variance, but the porch is something that is required, we'd like to have as part of it. So hopefully that answers your question. We don't have permits yet. We're still waiting for this result to be able to submit actual construction drawings.
I'm trying to understand whether or not we're reviewing a project or a porch.
Just a porch. That's all we're seeking relief for.
All right, can we see it?
And while we're pulling that up, Mr. Roberts, maybe you can help me. I thought I saw in the zoning denial that there was a knockdown for deficient parking behind the front yard setback. Was that resolved as a result of whatever changes you made in the driveway, or is that still in play?
Yes or no, there is nothing else in play whatsoever other than the front porch.
Other than the front yard setback of the porch? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Before we get too far into this, could we find out what the actual current condition is? Because it looks like there is a couple steps up to a brick patio in front of that front door. So anything above 6 inches above grade counts as part of the front yard setback. So I'd like to get the actual existing number, so we know if you're just exacerbating a deficiency that already exists, or if you're encroaching further into the front yard setback.
We are not encroaching into the front yard setback any further whatsoever. We are utilizing the existing front porch and just building upon it.
What is the current existing front yard setback to whatever on that existing front porch is above 6 inches above grade?
Can you get me to the site plan?
Has anybody seen it? I haven't seen a survey. Is it listed on the, Sandy, I don't see a survey on our site. Does anybody else have one?
No.
I have it, Mr. Chesney. It's on the,
Is it on the
Okay.
architectural plans?
no, there's a separate PDF. It's a one pager. It's an 11 by 17 survey.
But it does not show the setback of the front stoop or the front steps.
No, it's just the setback to the face of the house.
Right.
Well, if it's right here on this page, here's your setback right here to the first step.
18.6 to the front first step.
That's correct.
So that exists, and that's what your proposed is. You're just exacerbating it vertically because there's not a structure above that right now. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
And will there be any other projection off the face of the house other than the roof that will be constructed and the columns connecting that roof to the existing stoop?
No, sir, that's it. You can see that on the front elevation as well, if you'd like to see that.
I did have a question about that. So the from the front elevation, so that's open to back to the house, or is that, you know what I'm saying? Is the front projection where the columns are, is there structure that's enclosing that up to the peak of that?
Look at the left side elevation, Pete.
There is roof over the columns, and so it covers the porch.
Right, I got that, but I don't know, is there any fascia there, or is it kind of open back to the house? You know what I mean?
If you look at
I'm
the
not
side
making up-
elevation,
Looks open.
you can see through it.
Yeah, it
It's just
shows it in the
columns,
front as
right?
being open. That's correct. I think I
No,
understand.
I understand that. I'm talking about, yeah, Mrs. Quigley, I think you understand what I'm saying, above the door, right? It just goes open, right, straight back to the house. That's kind of neat. I don't think I've ever seen it before. Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chiavetti, can you help me understand something? You mentioned the step being 6 inches, right? And that's where the setback would start, correct?
That's
Of the-
correct.
Of the step. So can you go to the first page of the drawings? I just want to clarify something, because if it's 18.6 feet to that first step, then in the top right corner now, get right there, where the existing front setback says 25.51, should that actually be 18.6? And the
That's
front,
the clarification that I was looking for. We come across that a lot. And yeah, that should be 18.6 because of the existing stoop.
perfect. Thank you, sir. That helps
But
me.
they are still exacerbating it vertically.
Yep, understood. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chiavetti, though, is it not true that if the existing stoop has no roof on it and is less than 100 square feet, it doesn't,
It wouldn't need a variance now, but it's still considered, it's still considered to be part of the front yard setback.
okay.
Mr. Roberts, when you review this, would you give us an idea about the front yard setbacks of the houses adjacent to this house? In other words, as you face the Powell's house, the house immediately to the right and the one to the right of that, can you give us an idea as to what those front yard setbacks would be?
Mr. Laffer, I don't have particular information with exact dimensions of what the adjacent houses are, but I would venture to say, from what I've seen, and I think the owners can testify to this as well, that you see consistency with this type of setback and structures, with this type of depth. But I would defer to them to know what's closer, and I do not have specific information about adjacent structures.
It's probably best not to speculate as to what it is. If you don't have the information, you don't have the information. With regard to the proposed project relative to the overall house, you're picking up the ridge line?
No, sir, we are not picking up the ridge line. No, we are adding dormers and things like that. I don't believe we're changing the ridge line, if that's your question, sir.
So I'm looking at a photo of the house on Google Earth, and I see, exactly what it looks like in comparison to your drawings. It looks very different because it looks like the roof pitch is currently 12 on 12, and it looks like the one in your architecturals are taller. For example, in the house right now, you have maybe a 2-foot by 3-foot window on the second floor, and you're showing a double hung. You're saying all that's fitting within the existing structure?
Yes, sir, with the extent of new dormers being put in. Yeah, I don't recall the entire face or the roof line changing. No, it's the dormers that are being added and the elevation of the front changing. As you can see in the floor plan, we're rearranging flooring in there. As Ms. Powell said, they have 4 children. We needed to reconfigure some space inside. So that's the extent of it, along with changing the finishes, siding and things like that, roofing.
I'm gonna ask to share my screen for 1 second. I just want to show you what this Google Earth image is. I'm trying to limit the analysis to exactly what you're asking for. And I recognize that there's a greater project here that really is not at issue for this board at the moment. But with regard to this, and I'm using my cursor, this is it appears to be much flatter with a much different window configuration. And so you're looking to put the porch here, just trying to understand what it's going to look like. And it doesn't seem like it's going to look like your elevations, but you're telling me it will.
Yes, again, I don't have CDs, I don't have construction drawings in front of me. So
all right, I don't know that it matters either way.
yeah, I mean, it's right. We are sticking to the front porch. I mean,
we're not used to doing it this way. We usually have plans and we know exactly what we're being asked to approve. What you've got here is kind of an interesting situation, but the argument is that it's very minor and that whatever this winds up being, it shouldn't have an impact on whether or not this board could see fit to grant the variance. I'm speaking on your behalf. So why do we need to cover this front stoop?
Well, for aesthetics, I think it adds charm to the neighborhood as well as the traditional Cape style home, as well as for functionality. As you can imagine, getting 4 kids in and out of the house at any given point in time is a challenge, let alone contending with the elements of the weather and, packaging and all that sort of thing.
And the cover for the porch and the brick steps, it's not going to be made any wider than it is now. Is that correct? You're just putting rooms on the roof?
If anything, it'll be taking in slightly.
Well, this is what I understand you to be asking for. I understand you to be asking to reuse your existing stoop and to put a roof above it and to land columns on the existing stoop and to not change the dimensions of the stoop. Is that incorrect? Are you going to reconfigure the stoop?
that is correct. Other than right now, you can enter the stoop from the front and the side.
Right.
We are going to just make it from the front. So it will actually, as Ms. Powell said, it's going to be less than it is currently.
So you'll clip both of those stairs that face whatever direction, the left as you look.
The left, that's correct, sir.
So both of them will be clipped?
That's right. We will not enter from the side any longer, only from the front.
So you'll square it up on that side and leave the steps facing the street only?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us some outside dimensions in terms of the overall ridge height of what this roof line will come up to, the overall width, and how far off of the face of the house it will project?
I can try, if you can get me back to that. I can try to give you that. Again, it's existing, the footprint of the front stoop.
I think it's necessary, if you're asking the board for a variance tonight, that you give us parameters within which you're going to work. And so I think you need to help us with that information. Otherwise, we don't have enough to go on.
And while we're doing that, we're going to mark the Google Earth photograph that was put up on the screen as Exhibit B-1, Board Exhibit number 1, Google Earth photo front of the dwelling.
Thank you, Mr. Irving.
Thank you.
Mr. Leader, from the proposed first floor plan, it looks like a 5-foot projection. The columns look like they're sitting right at the edge of the 5 feet. So I'm assuming, Mr. Roberts, that you're projecting the ridge out 5 feet. We just don't know what the height is.
You want the height of the of the ridge of the covered porch.
Well, am I correct in that that footprint of that top, the stoop itself is 5 feet irrespective of the stairs?
That sounds correct. If you can get me back to the site plan, please.
Page 3 shows the dimensions.
Right. So there you have it. It's a 5-foot projection. The ridge height would be minimal. I don't have an actual, but I would venture to say 12 to 15 feet max. I mean, it's, you know, it's only slightly above that top plate in the roof line to match the existing aesthetics. It is
If I could
not
just-
very high at all. Obviously, it's less than the roof itself, the ridge of the existing roof.
I just scaled it on the hard copy of the plans that I have, and from the top of the step, the top of the platform to the top of the roof pitch over the covered entrance, I'm getting about 13.5 feet.
Right, so it's right in between what I mentioned, yeah.
So you're not changing that roof line right above the structure where the front door is. You're leaving that roof line the way it is.
Can you take me to page 3, please? Elena?
I agree with you, Mr. Litter. By the way, on the front elevation that what we have, it looks a hell of a lot steeper than what the Google Earth image looks like.
Right. See that this dormer changes because we need the headroom in there. I want to show you on the floor plan.
What are you referring to when you say this dormer?
Meaning that front gable that you see behind the front stoop. If you look at the outline here, okay, on the proposed second floor plan, you see this is a new structure here. This is a new dormer to create headroom in here. We're creating
Where
2 bedrooms here, front and back. So the answer is yes, that roof line is changing from what is existing.
So that goes all the way back to my original question. You didn't change your answer.
Well, yes and no. I'm changing. I'm saying that there's new dormers going in, but you asked me if the entire roof line is changing, if I'm not mistaken. And I said, no, I don't believe so, but yes, there are dormers that are going in.
Mr. Roberts, is any of the proposed structure moving closer to the road?
No, sir, no. Only the front stoop roof, that's it, and that's all we're seeking relief for.
And the stoop itself is in its position that it's going to be in? The only thing is that you're adding to it vertically? Is that correct?
Yes, and we're taking off the steps to the left side of it, as we testified earlier. There'll be no double entryway to the front stoop. It will only be from the front. So the stoop will actually get slightly smaller.
So you're going to nest it into the new dormer that you're putting in to accommodate the expansion on the second floor. You're gonna nest that porch. The way it is on the drawings, it's just going to be the second floor addition, the roof line will be higher than it's shown on the Google map picture.
Yeah, it's steeper.
Right,
That's correct.
but the proportion will be the same, it seems. to me.
Yes, the two marry, the new stoop roof and the new dormer. That's correct. And now they'll have a covered front porch, so it's safer. You know, they have packages that now get wet, it gets icy there. It's not aesthetically pleasing or functionally does not work well.
So one of the difficulties of doing it this way is that because we're not considering the entire project, so we can't call out, you know, the exact size of the roof and the what you're adding to the stoop.
Well, we have done that. We've shown that it's the 5-foot projection. You can see the footprint on the drawing. Nothing is getting larger, only adding vertically, as Mr. Chiavetti said.
Right.
And do you have a number? You're calling it a dormer. I would call it a gable directly to the street. And somebody's got some background noise. I don't know if you're able to mute. Can you give us the maximum ridge height once you reconstruct the roof to that dormer, as you call it, facing the street?
Let me see what we have on here. If you could get me back to something there. I'm not sure, because we would not be exceeding the existing ridge height.
And what is that?
I don't believe we're exceeding the existing ridge height. I don't know that. I don't have that, Mr. Lair. I don't have.
Is that right there on the left-hand side, that 22 feet, 8 inches?
Yes, we got it, right. Yep. 22.8 existing to remain. You see that note?
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
just confused how you're raising the pitch of that dormer. I'm sorry, not dormer, the gable end. Is the gable end going to change in width?
No, sir. We're not. No,
So
all
you're
that is.
changing the pitch of the roof, but it's not going to be any higher than it is now?
The pitch of what roof, sir?
The gable end where the front door is, where the porch is going to be.
Okay, the front A that you see by the front door you're referring to. Yes, the pitch of that is changing. That's correct.
Right. So is the width of that gable end changing at all?
I don't know. I would say no, the pitch is changing.
Okay, so if the width doesn't change, but the pitch changes, how does the height not change?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The height may change, but it's not exceeding the existing ridge.
That was the question, is the ridge height changing? If you are not widening that gable end, but you're changing the pitch to steeper, either the ridge height on that gable end is going to be higher than it exists, or that gable end has to be wider.
Okay.
Or narrower, I'm sorry.
Is it possible to bring
the top of that gable end, the ridge at the top of that gable end in your proposal, is that going to be higher than the ridge at the top of that gable end as it exists now?
No, you can see by the drawing. Wait, okay, because the gable end to me is this main ridge, so I apologize. You're still only talking about the front. Is that correct?
Talking about the front of the house, you have 3 dormers, which are those single window units there on the left. And then you have this gable end, which is the portion of clapboard roof above that right-hand side of the house. That gable end. Is the top of that going to be higher than the top of the existing gable end that's there now?
I'm going to say yes, but I'd like to see the Google picture. If we can, is it possible to bring that up, the existing ridge? Because that would, I believe it would be higher than it currently is, yes.
Sure, if you drop that screen. So I think that from the Google image, it appears to me that that this gives the impression that the existing gable meets the ridge height of the main roof line, but that it probably doesn't. And you're probably raising it from what it is, but it still will not exceed the main ridge of the main house. You're going to be closer to meeting it, where it probably sits down beneath it by a few feet now. Does that sound like that's probably right?
Yes, I believe that's accurate. That's correct.
And so you're going to get some additional roof pitch, which, by the way, looks very nice. The relevance to us is not to see how long we can draw this out, but rather to try and understand what it's going to look like in the end and put parameters around any action that the board takes tonight so that we know that we've given you a box within which to work, which made sense given what you presented. And so that's the reason for the questions.
Understood.
So it's coming up and you're proposing to put a new roof above the front porch, the front stoop, which will line up with that new roof. That new roof will not exceed the 22 and change ridge height of the main house. It's going to project off the house no more than 5 feet. It's going to be no wider than the existing stoop with the exception of the soffits, which clearly go beyond it. And you're going to drop 2 columns on it. It's otherwise going to be open.
Yes, sir. That's
Anybody
correct.
have any other questions about what they're proposing?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. On the zoning table, they're calling out the maximum building height as 21.75, but as Mr. Roberts pointed out, on the elevations, it's a different height.
I'm going to ask a slightly different question to see if we can get to where we need to be. Is the ridge height on the main house going to change as part of this renovation?
No,
And is the ridge height on the gable facing the direction of the street going to go any higher than the existing ridge of the main house right now?
no,
So that's your limitation, whatever that number is.
understood.
Does that do it, Marty? Does that get us there?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what was correct to put in the zoning table. That's all.
And the roof is only going to go as high as it needs to go in order to double back and get to the other side of the stoop. It's got some existing parameters as shown on the drawing. So whatever that final height is, it's not indefinite. It's going to start at the left-hand corner. It's going to go up as far as it needs to get to be at 50%, and then it's going to drop down to the same amount on the right.
Yes, you're talking about the roof solely over the stoop, correct?
Right. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
it marries up to the new part. Yes, just like the drawing, correct.
All right. So just so everybody understands, that's all that's being asked of us tonight is to grant the variance with regard to the construction of this roof area above the stoop. The applicants testified that both for aesthetic reasons with regard to the overall renovation and for safety reasons associated with getting in and out of the house in the elements, that this roof is a prudent addition to the home, warranting the variance. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, I guess I can stop sharing.
No questions for me, Mr. Leader. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Is there any other testimony that you wanted to put before the board tonight?
No.
No.
Okay. I see we've got a few people in the audience, so we'll go to the public now. Or would anyone like to make any comments or ask any questions of the applicant or Mr. Roberts with regard to the proposal related to the porch? I know that Ms. Greenberg had raised her hand with regard to notice. Ms. Greenberg, do you have any questions or comments? You'd have to use your raise the hand feature and then we'll bring you forward. I'm troubled by the fact that I think Ms. Greenberg had a comment. Sandy, can you pull Ms. Greenberg forward? Maybe she's just not raising the hand.
Yep, I'm gonna bring Ms. Greenberg forward.
Never forced anybody to be here before. Ms. Greenberg, so we saw you just take off your mute. Would you be interested in making a comment or asking any questions with regard to the application? You're on mute right now. Okay, we've got your hand up, but you're still on mute. We need you to unmute first. Lower left-hand corner, probably. Sandy, can you unmute her manually? Oh, there you are. Ms. Greenberg, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Can we see you on video?
It's not letting me.
Pushing our luck?
Believe it or not, it says I'm on mute.
You're not now. We can hear you.
I'm not sure how to get on the video right now. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I apologize.
That's
So
okay.
Ms. Greenberg,
well,
if you want
if
to
I
make,
can-
Ms. Greenberg, can you hold on one
Yes.
second? I'm just going to swear you in so that if you
Oh.
want to make a comment, we'll have that as part of your testimony, okay? So,
Okay. Yes,
so tell me you're raising your right hand, even though I can't see it.
I
okay?
am raising my right hand.
All right, so you do
Yellow.
swear or affirm that testimony you give the board to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
You do.
I do swear.
Thank you. Okay, you can ask questions of the witnesses that have testified, or you can give comments, or both.
The
Okay?
comment I want to make is what was testified to tonight is different than what's on the application that is before me. And on the application right before me, it sits there and says that the conforming concrete stoop is 25.51 feet from the front, and they're asking for a yard setback to 18.5. That's a difference of 6.5 feet. It's very different from what was spoken to tonight. And it also said the difference was the covered area. I'm sorry, you'd have to read the conforming. If you go and read the distance that they're giving for the covered area is different. I mean, what they testified to tonight would be fine if they were just keeping it to the steps that were there and covered it up. I think that aesthetically, that is very nice. I'm worried about the setback going from 25 feet to 18.5 feet. And the homes next to it, believe it or not, are not. Right now, they're the same distance that the Powell's home is, the ones right next to theirs. So I would like to see the plans at least a little bit better. It doesn't make sense. Again, what they're saying, what's written here on the application is different from what I heard tonight.
Mr. Roberts, you can take this one?
Sure. Hi, Mrs. Greenberg. You and I have met before.
Right, it's not Mrs., but thank you anyway.
Okay. I'm not sure what we can tell you for certain is that what we've testified to tonight and which we've shown on the drawings is exactly what we anticipate doing and nothing more, and not exacerbating any other setbacks whatsoever, and only using the existing front porch.
Right. On your own drawings, though, it does say 18 feet 5 inches. And that's a difference of 6.5 feet, not 5 feet.
Well, ma'am, I think the drawings show where the house is located and where the stoop is located. I don't know exactly what the difference is, but again.
I mean, the plans look very nice. They do look very nice. I'm just worried if you're really going to pull it out 7 feet, because it looks like you're using it as an excuse to add extra space on the second floor.
Mr. Roberts, could I just interject 1 minute? Am I allowed to do that, Mr. Irene?
I have no objections to it. Ms.
Okay.
Quigley?
I was just going to try to clarify my understanding of what was testified to tonight, Ms. Greenberg. I'm not sure that there's really an inconsistency between what the folks are saying that they're planning on doing and the application that you have in front of you, because they acknowledged that that 25.51 number was really in error, because it was measured from the road to the front of the house, as opposed to the road to the front of the stoop. So that confusion is making it appear that they're asking to pull the stoop out further than it is now. But we have fairly exhaustively got the applicants and their construction person to tie themselves to keeping the stoop under the roof, exactly where it is, not pulling it out 6 feet from where it is, not impinging any further into the front yard than it does now, and then not creating an inconsistency with the neighboring houses. So I understand where your concern is coming from, because it was an error on the plan that has been sort of explained during the hearing tonight.
Okay, Ms. Quigley, what you said then, that makes sense to me, and I'd be very happy with it because I think it will make a nice improvement of their home.
Yes.
I was worried that it was coming out another 7 feet as well as going.
They're not doing anything with that stoop except putting a porch on it to keep the kids dry.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sorry, a roof on it.
All
Right,
four.
and also to add the second square footage.
Of course, of course.
And Mr. Roberts, Ms. Quigley's little synopsis there is fundamentally accurate. Is that correct?
Yes,
You're satisfied with that?
I am very, thank you, Ms. Quigley.
Ms. Greenberg, you're in good company to be confused. We've all been confused, but I think we've gotten to the bottom of it. It's a mistake that we see in plans regularly. I think what you should understand is that based on the testimony and what we've elicited from the applicant, the only thing the board would be moving to do would be to grant an approval, which would be directly tied to the existing conditions on site. There's no opportunity for confusion with regard to our resolution. There's certainly opportunity for confusion in the field. And if something's done that's outside of what's been proposed tonight, then that would be a problem for another day. But what's being proposed for approval tonight is to leave that stoop, create a 5-foot roof above that stoop with 2 columns with a ridge line that will match whatever the new ridge line is on this side of the house, nothing more.
Oh, that will be great. I look forward to seeing it.
Anything further?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who have any questions or comments regarding the application? Okay, let the record reflect none. Mr. and Mrs. Powell, Mr. Greenberg, Mr. Roberts, rather, do you have anything in closing?
No.
No.
Any board members have any additional questions? Elena, do we need to talk about anything that might have been in your report?
I mean, I have a couple questions that if I could just run through really quickly. I know that there was no attic access on the plans and that was a completeness waiver. How is the attic access existing and how is it proposed? Is it like a pull down in the ceiling?
There is no access whatsoever.
Okay, that's why it wouldn't be on there. All right, thank you.
I'd love a little more storage, but there's nothing up there.
Okay. And then I just had a comment about the walkway that you're showing, the new walkway leading from the front porch straight to the street. It is going to lead to the street and not just stop at the property line.
That's correct.
Okay. And then will the existing brick walkway be removed?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. And then do you need to remove any landscape for the improvements?
Couple of the bushes right in front of the stoop area, but no, there's no material landscaping.
Okay, and if you remove those bushes, are you going to add some other type of landscaping there in its place?
Yes.
Make it
Absolutely.
look nice. Okay, great. And then the proposed rear patio that is going to be installed at grade.
Correct.
Okay. And then I believe you provided testimony about the colors and materials for the facade.
Correct. The house will be getting a facelift on the siding and the roof.
Do you have colors picked out just yet, or are you guys still determining that?
The roof will be black and the siding will be like the white cedar.
And then do you know if any outside agency approval was required?
No, there shouldn't be field soil. We're not doing anything with that, so I don't even think we would need a waiver for that. I don't even know if we need to apply. There's nothing.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. And I believe that is everything from my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions or anything further before we deliberate?
I do have a question, Mr. Leader. It's part of the, I don't know if it's part of the deliberations or not, but I'd rather be on the safe side and ask it now. Is it possible to have a contingency of the approval that the zoning analysis is just looked at again and the correct numbers are put in there? So back to Mr. Chiavetti's comment, right, of the existing setback, and then Mr. Ryan's comment of the maximum height. There's just some discrepancies, and if we're agreeing to the conditions that we're agreeing to the variance, I think it should be represented correctly from a number perspective on the zoning analysis.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's for discussion. So I think we'll close out the testimony. I think we've moved into discussion. I think, Drew, your proposal is that any approval that be granted be based on the condition that the applicant be required to submit actual drawings for an actual porch to be built in actual Fairhaven, which dimensions conform to whatever parameters are set forth in the ordinance that we discussed tonight.
Yes, please.
Yep. Anybody else have anything else?
I think it's going to look great.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Are we oh, I thought we were deliberating. Okay.
Deliberate away.
I don't need to deliberate. I think it's a modest request. I think it's going to add to the character of the neighborhood and improve the functionality of the house. I think it's a pretty easy one, to be honest with you, to support this plan. If nobody
My
has any-
concern based on a site visit was the same as Mrs. Greenberg. I didn't want to see anything move closer to the road because the house as it exists now is pretty much in line with the neighboring houses as you face the house, both to the right and then further to the right. But that's going to be added is really de minimis, and I think it's going to make the whole project look nicer.
Yeah, look, I think that's right. I think the fact that it's over an existing stoop and it's only the roof makes it a fairly straightforward analysis. They're not pulling anything forward, without any testimony suggesting this would be, greatly out of scale or inconsistent, with the neighboring houses to do this. It seems like a very modest thing. The reason this is easy is because we don't really have the rest of the application. I just want to point out that we're being asked to look at one very small thing. And even for that, we've got less than what we're supposed to have in order to give it to you. I think we can do it based on the parameters that we've established, but I just want to identify you've got a major project going on. And you've come to the board with a very small issue. Everything else needs to conform, and to the extent that it doesn't, your project's going to send you right back here, and you're going to cost yourself 6 months. But based on what you presented, it seems very straightforward. Anybody have anything further?
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Leader, if there's nothing else for deliberation.
It's like your third, Drew.
All yours.
I'd like to make a motion for approval based on the contingency that Mr. Leader articulated before. Mr. Irene, I don't know if you want to re-articulate that for the group so it's clear.
Well, as I understand it, there was, the condition was going to be subject to the applicant submitting an actual drawing of the proposed porch with the dimensions all around. There was also the stipulations made that the roof of the porch was going to be less than 15 feet high, as I understood it, that it's essentially projecting only 5 foot forward from the elevation, the ridge line to match the ridge line on that same side of the house, and that it is going to be open-sided, but for 2 columns and the roof.
Right. So Mike, I'm just going to restate it. And I don't know if there's anything beyond what you've got beyond the stairs, but they're going to clip the 2 stairs which are on the left side. They're then going to construct 2 columns at the forwardmost corners. They're going to go straight up. And then the roof that's going to be constructed is going to track the new roof line that they build over this portion of the house. That ridge height is going to be no higher than the existing ridge height on the main house. And that ridge over the porch is going to go no further than it needs to go in order to anchor that roof line coming back the other direction and complete the gable. Is the hand worked out? You got it? Got
Sure,
it.
sure.
Whatever. You'll figure it out.
I'm sorry, something just came to my attention here that I hadn't seen earlier, and I'm concerned because it's different between the elevation and the, I guess, floor plan. On the floor plan section, I think it's page 3. I see the columns and the headers for that porch roof, but it looks like I also see railings going out forward from the columns down to the bottom step. I know we closed to the public, but I don't know if those are going to be there or not. That's part of the problem of not having
Well,
accurate plans.
I'm glad you raised it. I'm glad you raised it, Al. That they've not proposed such a thing. This is not of a height which would require railings because it's not above 36 inches. And I think that's outside of the scope of what we would be granting the variance for.
Right. My concern is just that it's on the plans that we have here. So I wanted to clear that up, that that's not part of the.
Would you be satisfied, Mr. Chiavetti, if where we reference that it's going to be open but for 2 columns, we also say that there are no railings?
That's fine.
Okay. Could I just ask the applicant to just wave their hand wildly if that's a problem? Or were you planning on putting? Okay, good.
No railings.
There we go.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Drew had a motion and we need a second.
I'll second.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes. Good luck, guys. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Take your time.
Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you. Okay, we have a bunch of administrative stuff that I want to run through quickly. Maybe one small discussion. Minutes from the April 7th, 2022 meeting. Having read the minutes and I have no changes to make, I will make a motion to approve the April 7th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Second.
April 7th or May 5th?
We have 2 because we didn't have meetings.
Oh, I
We didn't
see.
have minutes available for the April meeting.
During April 7th, Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
Yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
and that's it.
Minutes from the May 5th meeting. Having reviewed the minutes from the May 5th meeting and making no corrections, I will make a submission to, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 5th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan, Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
A resolution for Nick, 33 Cedar Avenue. I will make a motion to approve the resolution as submitted.
Second.
Who was the second?
Drew. Thanks, Andy.
Can he vote on that, Mr. Irene? He was recused.
I was recused.
No, we can't. Only
Apologies.
those who voted in favor of the action taken can vote on the resolution.
Okay, So we need a different second.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan, Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
Okay. In-person meetings. I know we had an informal discussion prior to the meeting opening. Does anybody have anything further on that? Mr. Leader, are we all set with that, do you think?
In-person meetings?
Yeah.
So it's a done deal.
I know, we had some discussion before. Just wanted to open it up, to see if anybody had further discussion.
Well, so Ms. Quigley, when we talked earlier, let's just make sure that we finish the discussion. So the motion was made last meeting to go back to live. We've changed our notices. We're set to go live 7/7. The understanding was that current protocols at Borough Hall are voluntary, and we didn't discuss it any further. Obviously, anybody can come in a mask, and we can spread across the dais based on space available by bringing up some folding chairs. Did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to share or discuss?
No.
Okay, good. Then I personally look forward to seeing everybody next meeting. It'll be fun. Email addresses. Mr. LaBarbera did a great job in researching all of this and sorting some things out, and I have taken advantage of it. Has everybody had a chance to set up an email address as per his instruction?
I've had a chance and haven't done it.
But like you're busy or something?
Drew, thank you. Did anyone else get one? So Peter, you scored one?
Oh yeah, I did it. Yeah.
Chesney was available? Sweet.
Oh, funny enough, it is. But I found some more of us, so look
So
out.
where is this, Mr. Barbera?
Andrew's fine, please. Sandy sent out a note with the naming convention, and I checked everybody's name, Mike, to include yours. Elena, I did not check yours, apologies. But I'm fairly certain. First initial, last name, FHZB@gmail.com.
I'm waiting to see how long, and I have not used that for anything. I'm waiting to see how long it is before I get spam email on that Gmail.
Have you given it to Sandy as your replacement email address?
Not yet.
I've given mine to Sandy.
Oh. I'll send it over to you, Sandy.
And if I may just make a plug, I know it's going to be used for, zoning board only. If you get a link from somebody you don't know, don't click it, right? If you get a link from somebody that you weren't expecting, don't click it. Please stress that.
Diligent. Thank you, Drew.
Do I have to watch a video and take a little quiz, Drew, or is that
I can send some material your way if you like. We can
I get
set
the
up a little
cyber guys
whiteboard
all the time,
session.
so I spend half of my day doing these things.
And they're getting better. They're getting better.
I just heard today that Somerset County clerk, I'm a real estate lawyer, so it's relevant to real estate geeks like me, was hacked. They can no longer access any of the land records, which means that there's no closings, which means that there's no searching, which means the time of the essence notices are going out. It means that people are losing their loan commitments. It is a disaster. I don't know.
That reminds me, slightly off the subject, but on the subject of not having access to things. I know we've used the New Jersey Association of County Tax Boards web search for property tax information frequently in researching before we come for these meetings. And I don't know if anyone's looked at it recently, but I use it for work as well. And I got a notice that due to a change in the law, there's not going to be a public search function on that system after December 31st of this year.
Really?
Is that related to Daniel's law?
I don't believe it's directly related to Daniel's law, but there apparently has been another change in the law in addition to Daniel's law. But whether it's a change in the law or it's a change in the policy of the New Jersey Association of County Tax Boards, I think it said it was a change in the law. on the notice, but yeah, it's not going to be available after December 31st, 22. They did show other links for other counties, and I don't know if those counties are going to have their own information up or if Monmouth County is going to have something up, but that particular resource is not going to be available after that time.
Interesting. I use the Monmouth County site. I wasn't aware. That's
Monmouth
no notice.
County is the one that administers the New Jersey Association of County Tax Boards site, so I don't know.
That's
if
interesting.
that's
There's no
gonna
notice
change.
on the Monmouth one, but oh, interesting.
Okay, so maybe available directly from the county. I'm not sure.
Teasing out the subject matter of not being able to find stuff. Sandy, can I ask that we use a naming convention in emails when you are circulating links to materials? I once again fell for it today, trying to catch up, looking for things with attachments, looking for names. I think there was a couple of things that were labeled in different ways, and I'm sure I missed the link. Can you maybe, when you're sending a link to the materials, just identify it as such so that when I'm searching, I can't even tell you how many emails I have, and I had trouble finding it. And I know it's out there. Also, some of this stuff has been circulated like 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, I guess, is if I'm understanding some of it. So you're going back way further than you would think.
I got to be honest. I usually get stuff right off of the Fairhaven website. I find that to be the easiest.
That would be so easy, and I didn't do that either.
Yeah, I gave up looking through emails because some of them are so old that they drop off or whatever happens. But the town website is good.
So that's what I did this time is I didn't circulate attachments. I just put everything up on the website. So you wouldn't have been able to find attachments. And I put a note in there, which maybe I should have made it bolder, that if you wanted attachments sent, you had to ask for them, because it just seemed like I was having more trouble sending large attachments over and having to send a lot of emails.
So that's fine. I don't think that's a problem. I haven't heard
Okay.
anything mention it. What I need is an array that says application materials, blah, blah, blah. That's what I need. I don't know what anyone else needs. That's what I need.
You're needy.
I know.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking for, because I don't have a problem with doing it if I understand what it is. Are you saying the naming conventions that we put on the website you want to be consistent?
Absolutely not. I'm saying that the naming conventions in emails being sent by you, some clear indication in the subject line that it is the application materials for a particular applicant, so that when I am scrambling the day of the hearing to find things and review it and get ready, that amongst all the emails, those rise to the surface because I'll know what I'm looking for.
Okay, so are you looking for attachments to still be sent to you outside?
No, I'm fine with you just sending it as a link. And like that, I could solve my own problem by just going to the borough website. But I think for as long as we continue to send emails, I think it makes sense for those emails to be separately identifiable as containing links to an applicant's materials. And then there's supplements to that too, which would have to be application materials, Smith supplement.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
I'm sure it'll be helpful for everybody, not just me.
Yeah. All right. So everybody's going to get their email addresses in good order, and we will, going forward, just be using those for board business only. I'm going to flip the order of agenda for a couple of things. Next thing up is the Gallardo, I guess it was resolution. They're requesting an extension of time for granted variance relief. Do we have any more information on that, discussion on it, 8 Hendrickson Place? Do we have the letter requesting?
Yeah, I remember what this was.
There was an email.
Yeah.
It was in the email with the agenda, and then Mike sent out a resolution.
So the email was from Mr. Gallardo, Friday, May 20, to Sandy, Sean Gallardo, Lara Robbie, residing at 8 Hendrickson, are requesting a 12-month extension on the variance relief granted on January 2, 2021. And he says certified. I think he means the adoption of the resolution on February 4, 2021. He tells us where they live. He tells us the variance relief that was granted, side yard setback, total side yard setback, front yard setback, and habitable floor area ratio. And he says the impact of COVID-19 upon the applicant's lives and livelihood, as well as the disruption to the global supply chain and labor shortage, has been extremely challenging. During this unprecedented time, the ability to secure building materials, appliances, and labor has proven very difficult. Projected building and finishing timelines are uncertain at this time. In addition, finding reasonable accommodations locally for relocation has been difficult. For these reasons, the applicants are requesting a 12-month extension of variance relief.
Anybody have a problem with this?
No, I think it's reasonable and understandable, given what's, construction is a nightmare right now.
The only reason it would matter is if something changed where you thought that perhaps we wouldn't grant the variance if brought before us in current times. I'd like to make a motion to extend by 12 months.
I'll second.
Can we make that motion to also adopt the resolution in that regard?
Yeah.
There we go.
What you
And
said.
seconded by Mr. McChesney?
Yes.
Now, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Leader, one question. 12 months from when it expired, 12 months from today, or do you just want to give him a date?
When did it expire?
Well, if he got it in, if it was the resolution was February 4, it's good for a year from that. So it would have been February 4, 2020. So we're doing it nunc pro tunc.
Is there any issue with how long we can extend it? 12 months from the date of the adoption of the resolution. That's my motion.
This resolution.
Yeah.
Got it. That's the motion. Mr. McChesney, is it okay?
Yeah, second.
Okay.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Ms. Quigley,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
yes,
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
So Sandy, would you do me a favor and just fill in that blank in the last line of the resolution when you get a minute? Just fill in June 2, 2023. Thank you.
Great. March 7th Land Use Committee memo. Mr. Leader, do we have any further discussion on that? I think we covered it in the last meeting, didn't we?
So just so everybody is reminded, there is a planning board subcommittee that comes out of the land use subcommittee from council. There are a handful of things that are being worked through. And there is likely going to be a recommendation from the planning board, at least I would hope, based on what the subcommittee is putting together. Peter, you and I are on that subcommittee. No one else is on that subcommittee, right?
Dr. Lawfer is.
Oh, Dr. Lawfer's on it too. Okay. So we're working through some language and then that'll be presented to the planning board. So I just found out that the June planning board meeting is the 21st, which is the night of Knollwood graduation. I happen to have a graduate, thank God. And so I'm not going to be at that meeting. So it won't be presented then, but it will be in the July meeting. And so if that works out and planning board recommends it, they'll shoot it to council. Those items are prevailing front yard setback, first floor elevation, habitable floor area, how to retweak that, and the removal of the penalty for the attached garage.
And the stoop.
And removal of that, the
100 square feet.
100 square foot exception for the front yard setback. So that's moving. And if anybody wants to stay in touch with Sandy, if you want to know when that's going before the planning board, if you want to participate in that meeting.
Last one is RFP professionals discussion. Todd has Elena, I guess you can drop off if you have anything, nothing further. Any questions, comments?
I don't mind hanging out. I have nothing else going on tonight, so.
Okay.
So the planning board did appoint a planner and I just sent to Sandy via unsecure email my call-in number, and I'd like to make a motion to go into closed.
I'll second.
So before Sandy reads roll call, Sandy's going to circulate to all of you the call-in information. And after a short comfort break of probably 2 minutes, when I get back to my desk, I'll open the conference line and we'll pick it up there. We'll leave this open and then we'll return back to close the meeting.
Well, I will be stepping out because I have recused myself from this particular issue. So good night.
Good night, Mrs. Quigley.
Thank you, Ms.
Mrs. Quigley, sorry.
Thank you.
MS Quigley.
Good night.
Ooh, maybe I'll get it on my FHZB account.
Yeah. So I made the motion, Peter seconded. Sandy, we're ready for your roll call, please.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes. All right, exiting. I'm exiting out of the Zoom. I'm going to get back onto Zoom. Just make sure that you don't leave your Zoom line open. As you do the conference call, you got to look to your email to get the conference bridge.
So Sandy, we're hopping onto a conference bridge?
Yep, you're going to get an email and yep, you're going to get an email in a second.
All right, just the first time I'm doing this.
It has the directions on it.
All right, cool.
Did you get the email?
Not yet. I'm checking both. Okay,
Okay.
so just call into what Todd provided and then go off of Zoom, right?
Yep, it looks like some people just muted themselves. Either way, turn off your video and and mute yourself,
Okay, cool.
or you can go off. Looks like people are doing both. Go off, I think.
I'll mute and go off video. It's fine.
Okay.
Thanks, Sandy.
Is everyone back?
Hmm,
3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Here,
Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. La Barbera,
Here.
Dr. Lawfer,
Here.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Here.
and Mr. Leader.
Here.
on the subject of the RFP for board professionals, I would like to make a motion to appoint CCH, Clark Clayton Hints, for the position of board planner for the 2022 year, which will be limited to an as-needed basis, anticipated to be for commercial projects only, contingent upon the successful completion of the contract stipulating a flat fee for meeting attendance.
Second.
Mr. Nick Chesney,
Yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. La Barbera,
Yes.
Dr. Lawfer,
Yes.
Mr. Chiavetti,
Yes.
and Mr. Leader.
Yes.
yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Elena for her service to us for the last several years. It's been a pleasure, Elena, really, and I wish you the best of luck. And
Thank you. I appreciate
just to
that.
note, just as a note that the hiring rule has been retained for the affordable housing project, so we probably will be seeing Elena some more. But thanks very much, Elena. It's been a pleasure.
We also have all the closeout of all the stuff that's ongoing, so I'm sure this isn't the last time we're going to see Elena.
Correct. And I also want to thank one more time Dr. Laufer and Mr. Ridgway for helping out with this extensive interview process. It finally has come to a conclusion. But thanks, Skip. Appreciate it.
We're through administrative now, right, Peter?
That's the last item. Public
Okay.
comment.
Yep. Just
All right,
wanna-
well, thank you guys for letting me work with you the last couple of years. It's been nice working with you, and I wish you the best of luck. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. guys.
Thanks, Elena.
Thanks, Elena.
Thank you, Elena. Appreciate it.
Okay, we're moving to public comment. So I see there's 2 members of the public. If either of the 2 members would like to make any comment or ask any questions of the board, now would be the time. Okay, let the record reflect none. Anything else, guys?
No.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody, for their time tonight.
Look
yeah.
forward to seeing you next month.
Motion to close. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
Thanks,
hope the
everyone.
Mets game is starting. Gotta go, guys.
Stay safe. Bye. Take care.
Night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.